I started supporting Tulsi Gabbard in 2020 during her campaign, the libertarian leftist connection of sorts, as you know, I'm one of the whole let's push this kind of pack together. I'm sure there was people who came before me who had done this, but as in a independent media journalist and activist that was in the Tulsi Gabbard corner, I got to meet these libertarians in New Hampshire. Some of them from all over around the country, but one of them was from New York. And I got to see him again this weekend. He's an awesome dude. I've been on his show before. He's coming over here to chill with us. We love him. David Fite is in the building, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
What's up, buddy?
How's it going? Man, my voice is still shot from this weekend, man. I'm going to sound like hell this whole interview, but thanks for having me on, dude. And respect for getting right back to it already, man. I would have been asleep all day if I were you.
No, I couldn't. This is my 6th show. This is my show. We're already an hour and change into it. And we got the big section right here with you, David Fite. So let's just get into it. I'm glad that I have you on. There was a bunch of other people I was thinking about having on, but after this weekend, and we spent so much time together, and you laid out a lot of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The way the inner workings of the party drama of sorts of the party itself, the Mises Caucus, the not so Mises Caucus, the candidates, the whole 9 yards. So we're gonna break it down with David Fite. You are a delegate, right?
Yes, I was.
How long have you been in the Libertarian Party for?
I joined in 2016. I was 19, getting ready to vote for the first time, and hated all of the choices in the race because it was down to about Ted Cruz, Sanders, Trump, and Clinton by the time that I found Gary Johnson. And I was like, guns and drugs, this is my guy. I wasn't even a stoner yet at that point in time. I'd never smoked weed. I thought it was still like bad and whatever. But I thought that you should be able to do that. I was a big end the war on drugs advocate. So I found somebody that was pro guns at the same time. I was like, all right, these are my people. And when I registered to vote, I registered Libertarian, and I've been one since.
That's pretty awesome. And you were one of the first guys I met, along with the Jackman brothers and Reed Coverdale, who's actually made some noise in New Hampshire. Reed is Reed. He doesn't hold anything back. He doesn't pull any punches, and he can be very brutally honest and sometimes a little bit edgy and over the top and maybe make comments that aren't the best. That is Reed Coverdale, right? I called him like, Reed, I was going to have him on the show with us, but he's rock climbing. So we'll let him rock climb because he's lost a ton of weight. He's looking good, but he's the same old Reed. But David, he's not the only one out there that has a lot of that same energy and same positions. But let's start off with what Angela said. First off, I just want to say I think Angela McArdle did an amazing job as the chair of this convention. This convention was amazing. I've talked on several shows today. Mainly, I've been talking about this convention, and I was talking about how nuanced it was. Listen, as the time goes, so goes the discussions. And right now, the things that were talked about most was foreign policy, what's going on in Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, freedom of speech, all the censorship and the demonetizing and big tech, what they're doing, and freedom of the press, Snowden, Assange, and of course, free Ross Ulbricht, where a lot of people see that sign. A lot of Trumpers saw that sign. They were saying free Ross Perot. I didn't even know he was in jail. So we got to educate people on who Ross Ulbricht was, serving several life sentences, already done 11 years in prison for creating a free marketplace in the marketplace. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I do think that Donald Trump can, if he does get elected, I think he'll follow through with that one because it's not somebody who the military-industrial complex hates like an Assange or a Snowden. So he might be able to pull that off. He might go and tell the generals and all the other people who work in the military-industrial complex, all right, you won't let me pardon Assange or Snowden, but give me Ross. Give me Ross. And, listen, I've butted heads with Martha Bueno many a times when it comes to Cuba and communism, but she's been one of the leading advocates for Ross Ulbricht. And I can just say, way to go, kiddo. You got a big victory here. Even if he's lying, people are now educated on Ross Ulbricht, and I think that is amazing. So I just want to say big ups to Angela McArdle for throwing a great, great convention. Let's start off with her tweet, and let's get your opinions about what's going. See, everybody, you have to understand this. David Fite has been in the party for quite some time, almost 8 years now, I think it is, and he knows the inner workings. He knows the way the caucuses work, the way the party operates. So we're going to get a lot of inside information from David Fite. Hopefully, he's taking a little sips of alcohol, so he'll spill the beans.
Oh, this is water. This is just
well. Hopefully, you still won't hold back. Look at Angela's tweet right off the bat. It says, "Everyone is understandably flipping out right now. I will have more to say this weekend. For now, I will say that I delivered an incredible convention with the help of my amazing staff and volunteers. All of my critics were wrong. I made the right call to invite Donald Trump, and if the Libertarians can behave themselves, we will free Ross Ulbricht and put one of us in his cabinet. Balls in your court, Libertarians. We are getting in that administration." Let's start off with the very first sentence. Everyone is understandably flipping out right now. What does she mean by that? Explain to the people what they're flipping out about and why it's understandable.
Well, so Angela is part of a caucus, the Mises Caucus, like you mentioned earlier, who kind of took control of the party 2 years ago in a fairly decisive victory in our national convention in Reno. A lot of people thought that they had not as decisive of a victory, but a pretty sweep of the convention this time around in the bag. And then they showed up, and that wasn't exactly how it went. They didn't get a couple of the seats on the committee that they were hoping to, and then ultimately they didn't get the presidential candidate that they were hoping, or any of the presidential candidates that any of them were hoping. And so a lot of people are upset about that. Honestly, this happens every 2 years. After every convention, the losing team goes nuts on Twitter for a couple of days. And typically within a month or two, bridges are being mended. People are working together. People are having conversations, and things are starting to work together again. So, I mean, this is one of the worst kind of blow-ups post-convention on the internet I've seen. But I also think that has to do with the fact that we are more popular than we've ever been. There were more eyes on this convention. To Angela's point, there were a lot more people like you at the convention, people from who aren't normally at, insider kind of events like that. And so, yeah, I think that definitely has a lot to do with it. Dave Smith is twice as big as he was 2 years ago. So anything he gets involved in, it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, I genuinely think that this will, or I hope that this will settle down and that the party gets to work together.
Well, let's stay on this topic real quickly, and we'll not real quickly. Let's stay for a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more, since it is the presidential nomination and it was Chase Oliver who did get it. Cheese Slice, if you can ready the Chase Oliver interview that I got him 20 minutes after receiving the nomination. There are some things that I think it's not just about him not being a Mises Party member and why they're upset. Chase, I think you were supporting him. You might have worked on one of his campaigns before. Have you or no?
I helped him out with his congressional campaign in 2021 a little bit, and then a little bit on the Senate campaign in 22. I didn't support him in the convention. I was working on Lars Mapsted's campaign.
That's right.
Going into this nomination, but I did vote for him towards the later ballots.
You did vote for Chase towards the later ballot. All right. So are these legitimate criticisms that we are hearing from some people, even if it's their Mises Party Mises Party members are bitching and complaining, but they're saying it's more than just he's not a Mises guy. They're saying it's a legit criticisms when you talk about his LGBT stance. Not so much that he's the first LGBT candidate to run for the Libertarian Party, but the fact that he has made statements and tweets before about, access to drugs for kids to transition, right? I mean, they're a little bit, they are libertarianish with, you can't ban anything. It's the free market. You have to let that go. But a lot of people look at that differently, and they think that's a big no-no when he has tweets about kids getting access to drugs to transition. I mean, there are people out there, not just in the populist right, but in the Libertarian Party that believe there's no such thing as a trans kid. They just don't believe it. That's their their point of view. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a legitimate criticism when it comes to that particular issue right there?
So I think that it's a legitimate disagreement. I think that there's room for plenty of different opinions on that issue. It's a very nuanced, very dicey conversation that with a lot of factors at play. So it's a completely legitimate disagreement for sure. I don't think it's a legitimate deal breaker. A lot of the people who are attacking him for this stuff are the kind of people who for the last 5-10 years have been talking about how all everyone cares about are LGBT issues, and all anyone wants to talk about are these issues, and all anyone wants to talk about is culture war, and no one was messaging on anti-lockdowns or anti-war or anti-police brutality or any of these really solid libertarian points. And then they have somebody who just happens to be gay and have some of these opinions, who's been advocating for the policies that they want to see advocated for the last year and a half around the country. He's the most traveled libertarian candidate that we had this year. He went to all 50 states talking about these popular, mainstream libertarian ideas. He wasn't going around promoting trans ideology and the fact that he was gay. Even he honestly, he only sometimes even was wearing the rainbow flag lapel pin, and that was about the most he did. He was and he was winning in states like Iowa and Oklahoma and other states against some of these, semi-Christian populist right-wing candidates. He was kicking their asses in these Midwestern states because he had this policy where he was attacking, economics, war, and government accountability. Those are his main issues. I think if to not support that as a libertarian, I think is crazy. If again, to disagree with some of his other opinions is one thing, but to say, oh no, I'm going to vote for Trump instead, or something like that, or that he's as bad as Biden, or that he's some commie, I think some of the critiques are just wild.
What about his position on mandates and lockdowns? I mean, I know he wasn't fully supportive of it, but he did kind of had this, non-clear point of view when it came to, a lot of people said he bought into the whole, jab, lockdowns and mandates, and kind of went along with the mainstream media narrative. Do you have anything to say about that?
I mean, so that was something that him and I disagreed on in the moment, and him and I had a couple of conversations about, but he never had any opinions that were actually anti-libertarian. He was anti-government mandates or government forced lockdowns of any kind, but he was obviously not obviously. He was, somebody who wore a mask whenever he was asked to. And a lot of times in public, was doing the social distancing thing, and stayed home for kind of that first big wave in March, April. He definitely, I'll say he definitely maybe bought into it on a personal level, but he never bought into the kind of government propaganda that we needed to be mandating or forcing any of this. He did have that hyper libertarian opinion of the government also shouldn't be able to say that a business can't require a vaccine for their employees, which is kind of that's a dicey area, which I do agree with him. I think a business should be able to discriminate their employees kind of however they so choose, to be perfectly honest with you. It's super dicey.
That's the libertarian point of view I hate.
That's the ultimate libertarian opinion. I know that, but again, that's not something
almost like they're allowed to break a law, David. You got to you can force somebody tell them what they have to do to put in their body. And listen, we didn't hear a lot about the free market and all that other stuff this weekend. We did concentrate mostly on being an anti-interventionist, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press. Those were the three biggest issues that we heard talked about, with a lot of nuance at this convention. That's what I loved about it. Every once in a while we heard about private property and the free market, but to me, I hate that position. I just like to say that I can't stand it. No, that's how do you you're saying that the free market, a person's business, trumps the sovereignty of one's personal sovereignty of their own body. I'm sorry, that to me should be illegal. And to me, it's like it's unlibertarian in a way when you think about it. But I mean, we can talk about that all the time. I
feel
couldn't
like that's
find
one of those distinctions.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I
Good.
feel like that's one of those distinctions between the kind of like libertarian and anarchist wings of the movement, where I think the libertarian argument is more in agreement with you, because like if a government is to exist, then it should probably protect those employees. I don't think that the government is fit to exist, and therefore there shouldn't be that kind of enforcement wing, and that should be more up to society to either patronize that business or put it under for being a terrible business that's doing shitty things to its employees.
Well,
So
listen, Cat 83 put this up here, and this is perfect. Chase needs to have the nuance of the private-public relationship and how government influences businesses, and also how monopoly influences things as well. And that should be, like I said, that should be. And I understand it's nuance, right? This is something a little bit different. Like I was on Due Dissonance today talking about that. I'm like, a lot of libertarians don't feel that way. That Chase does. That a company should be able to do that, and that would get to it. Let's play this clip really quickly of Chase, and we'll play the clip, and here is a good example, right? Because to me, the question that I put out there about a ban on gain of function, he kind of went to that libertarian mindset about the free market. Like, no, it should be against the law for a company to tell you what you have to put in your body. It should be against the law for anybody, even in the private sector, to do any gain of function testing. It's too dangerous. Let's go full screen on this, and we'll get your opinions right after this video. David Fite is with us, Libertarian delegate. We just had the Libertarian National Convention. I am Craig Pasta Jardula. If you want to help out the show, we saw a super chat in there from Natalie. Thank you so much. We'll get to it shortly. But this is 20 minutes after Chase Oliver had won the presidential nomination. Let's go full screen. Take a look.
Hello. How you doing? I'm Craig Pasta Jardula, independent media. My show's called Pasta to Go, just so you know. I'm not here to...
Pasta to Go. I like that.
So, Chase,
all about the fettuccine.
It is. Well, it could be the bucatini sometime. But now we know that you like fettuccine. Chase, you are now the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. You're going to come out of this pretty much an unknown by a lot of people who are not inside the Libertarian Party. How do you make a splash for the Libertarian Party for those out there who don't know who Chase Oliver is?
Well, I think it requires energy, enthusiasm, and running a bold campaign that takes no prisoners, that says we must free ourselves from the warfare state and the abuses of this overly abusive and intrusive state as it currently exists. If we run true to our principles with energy, enthusiasm, and passion, we will wake people up. Know one thing about me. I'm not a politically connected elite. I'm not somebody who was born with a silver spoon in my mouth or has been in politics for the last 50 years. I know what it means to be someone who lives paycheck to paycheck in this life. I have lived the life that so many Americans are, and that so many Americans are struggling to get ahead with. And I know we can do better as a country. And I urge you, if you're not a libertarian, to learn about the libertarians. Go to lp.org, check out our platform, and see that freedom is truly the answer to all of the ills that exist within our own government.
Chase, what do you tell an independent who's left-leaning that wants some Medicare for all system? It's completely against libertarian ideology, but how do you get those people who are so sick and tired of seeing people going bankrupt from medical bills?
I understand the need to help people who are suffering from healthcare abuses and the overcost of healthcare, but creating a one-size-fits-all single-parent plan will not solve that issue. In fact, it will stifle the innovation of our marketplace that allows these new medical technologies to emerge, that allows us to live longer, healthier lives. There are much better ways using free market forces and getting the government out of healthcare altogether that can ultimately lower the cost of healthcare for you and your family.
Chase, there's still a problem with a lot of entities that can still do gain-of-function testing. Will you ban gain-of-function testing on day one?
Well, I will be banning on things. Let me just say this. I don't want the government to be investing in any medical research. I would rather the free market invest in those things, because ultimately they're going to be held more accountable than some unelected government bureaucrats who are possibly poisoning us with whatever they want to put in our bodies.
Last question, Chase. Mike Matt said he wanted to be your vice president. You guys had made that little kind of condition together, but the vice presidency ticket is going to run right now, just the same way it ran for the presidency. If you get somebody like a Larry Sharp or a Clint Russell, are you going to still campaign the same no matter what?
Well, I'm going to work hard no matter who my partner is, but I'm hoping that the delegates in the body will understand that Mike Tremont is the partner for me to really bring this message out, because there's no better message than saying somebody who is a police accountability activist partnering up with an ex-police officer who understands the need for accountability there. And so there's a great story to tell. I look forward to getting out with Mike Tremont across the country and spreading the message of liberty with passion, fire, and energy.
Good luck, sir.
Thank
you so much.
So there you have it. Gain of function testing. I'm going to let the free market decide. Like, look, I hate to say that my first set of questions to Chase, I threw a little wrinkle in there to kind of, surprise him. And I was hoping he would say, absolutely, yes, I don't care. Gain of function testing is too dangerous. We're not going to stop. I'm going to stop it. I mean, I get it. But, how do you make a push sometimes when you let libertarian ideology come in and kind of like drive the bus on something that can be so dangerous as gain of function testing?
So, I mean, first of all, I have to say, I think that was a really good answer on the spot on, what was that, day 4 of the convention, running on however little sleep he had, just, as the timing of that interview, I think he did pretty well I wouldn't have been able to do that well if you had actually put me on camera a couple days ago. But I mean, if he had said yes, here's the thing. If he had just said yes, ban it, that would be part of the shitstorm on Twitter today, with all the libertarians attacking him for his unlibertarian opinions, because you can't ban things.
It's like, gain of function, though. I get it. Look, these are things that we're gonna have to see as we go along. What about the healthcare question? Do you think his messaging can get better on healthcare? Because there are going to be leftists out there, independent leftists like myself, right? And I want some like more of a libertarian kind of like healthcare as a human right, where we can find a way. Those who need it most, who are going to get swept under the rug, find a way for them to get a stipend of sorts or a tax write-off where they can go get the healthcare that they think is best for them. But do you think he can do better on his messaging when it comes to healthcare to appease to independent leftists out there?
Yeah, and honestly, I've seen him do it before. Again, like with how fucking exhausted he must have been at that point.
Yeah.
Like if he's actually trying, if that's the mindset he's in, he messages fairly well on that issue, and he has a pretty decent communications team. That communications team just tripled in size in the last 48 hours because it absorbed Termont's team, a little bit of our team from Lars, a couple of other people that were staying out of it until the nomination because they don't like getting into the infighting. I think both Chase and Termont will continue to improve as candidates, as they have over the last year, as we go into the general. And I think, from my experience, Chase is one of the best messengers we have towards that, kind of left libertarian side of things. That's why the Mises Caucus hates him. And, he does a good job of kind of going into those spaces and messaging. And Termont, I think, does a really good job of going into a lot of the spaces that Chase isn't going to fit in to, that kind of country club, lifestyle type demographic that he can message to and kind of bring that the resume and the confidence of the ticket. I think that they'll do really good together, and as they kind of mush their campaigns together into one solid message over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see some really cool stuff.
I have a unique position on the border, right, and unique position on immigration, but I do like Mike Termont's position on it. When in the debates, he was told, after Josh Smith was talking about the issues at the border, he says, no, immigration is one of the best things to happen to this country. It's what makes this country great. I will say this much. What I really do like about the libertarian mentality and the message was the fact that they understand that our foreign policy is one of the driving forces to migration to the border. It's something that Thomas Massey couldn't admit to. He's like, oh, no, not at all. I wouldn't blame our foreign policy, but we got to get rid of the CIA. We got to drop sanctions. It's like, all right, that's a little hypocritical. But I think Mike Termont has a great message on that. And I think so does Chase. And, for me, it's like, yeah, they should be allowed. It's not that we want an open border, but if we're going to be in those countries there, if we're going to colonize those countries, then we have to take accountability for when they come to our border. Let's talk about the inner workings of the party, the stuff that went on. We're going to go full screen. Mike Rechtenwald, who was the Mises Party candidate of sorts, he was endorsed by Dave Smith. He did a speech beforehand. He led like 5 rounds of this convention. And I thought it was amazing the way you guys did this. I know it took hours, but I love the fact that every single time you have a vote, the last place candidate gets eliminated. The way, the other candidates were going behind pillars and talking, going out indoors and making deals and trying to whip up votes and try to figure stuff out. But you can see this is when Lars, your guys, unfortunately got eliminated. And I appreciated Lars throwing a good little reception during Donald Trump, where me, David, and David took a picture together, had some chicken skewers and some shrimp egg rolls. But you could see every single time the last place person gets eliminated. But there was a backroom deal sorts. It was implied by Rechtenwald that somebody, and you can see right here, that go back one round 6 real quick. You can see in round 6 right here, you have to meet the threshold, which is 50% plus 1. So you can see that Chase Oliver and Mike Rechtenwald, even though they're the last 2 candidates, he didn't meet the threshold. So we had one more vote. Chase Oliver had to go against Noda, which is none of the above, and he got it. Thank God, because if in fact Noda wins there, you are closing that convention without a candidate, and you're losing almost like 10 states of ballot access immediately. So it was one of those whoosh, thank God. But at that point, with the inner fighting of the Mises caucus versus everybody else, the old guard, the new guard, I'm surprised that it wasn't as it should have been closer. I thought it was going to be like 52% to 48%. But let's look at Rechtenwald. This is him coming right off the convention floor after he lost the nomination. He felt like he was stabbed in the back. Take a look. We're going to go full screen. I'm here with David Fite, Libertarian delegate. He's here breaking down what happened at the convention. We'll go full screen on this one. Here's Mike Rechtenwald coming off the floor of the convention.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Your thoughts on the whole process and what you experienced today, Mr. Rechtenwald?
Well, it's kind of sucks winning 5 straight rounds and then losing in the last one. And I was promised an endorsement by one of the candidates who turned out to be a snake.
Yeah.
So lied to me 4 times. And that's just, the lack of integrity amongst these people. I'm stunned. Yeah. I actually didn't do any glad handling with the other candidates, making deals, paying people off, none of that stuff.
Yes.
I just ran a race like me against them, and the best man wins. That's not how it happened.
Yeah. Well, are you okay with the process? Are you going to object? Or, I know the rules are the rules, but with write-ins, it just seems kind of odd that they would eliminate the other candidate that's viable for the nomination. So are you going to pick a protest whatsoever, or is the rules pretty much set in stone and you're just going to deal with the results?
I don't think there's any rules that we can challenge.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
They have to do a 2/3 amendment to the bylaws, and that's not going to happen.
Have you given any instructions or orders or your thoughts to the people who supported you on what to do next?
I will.
You will.
Absolutely, but they're not going to give me time for that on the stage.
Yeah.
Everybody knows how much I appreciate them, but I will tell them again.
Yeah.
I've had the greatest supporters. I had an amazing staff, starting with Lori Price, my partner in crime, Mike Heiss, Dave Casey, Jennifer Hobbin, 4 of us, almost one.
Is not going to play it. All right, come back to me. Okay, sorry we couldn't play the rest of the video over there. It crapped out on us, but you can see he was upset. He said that he was stabbed in the back. There was a snake. I'm assuming, I could be wrong. Maybe you can confirm, deny, or pretend like you don't know. I'm not going to hold it against you, Dave, but I'm assuming that he was talking about Mike Termat. And because Mike Termat had made an agreement with Chase Oliver that he would accept his VP role if he were able to win the nomination himself. So what was very interesting is that after we had this long, drawn-out process and finally got a presidential nominee, we had a little mini match for the vice president, which came very close between Mike Termat, who eventually got the nomination, and Clint Russell, who had destroyed Vivek Ramaswamy. But there's also something to that as well. But give us your opinions on what Rechtenwald said as he came off the floor of the convention.
So I'm not. I also assumed that he was talking about Mike there. He also could have been talking about Josh Smith. I know I got sent a screenshot from the Smith Discord just after he came off that he actually he told his people vote however you want. He actually it was a really good. Josh and I have some beef, but I'll be really kind here. He very, very good to his team, and a very honorable thing. But he did actually kind of say Lars and the resources was probably the best way to go to kind of keep the message going as loud as possible. I also kind of thought he was talking about Mike, but I find it kind of interesting that he both said, he alluded to there being a backroom deal that was gone back on, but then also said that he didn't make any backroom deals with any of the candidates.
Well, listen, you could take that up. You could take that up with your Libertarian brethren over there. I'm not part of the party.
I don't know. That was my biggest takeaway
but
from that. Honestly, was okay, which was it? And I'm sure that something kind of in the middle is the truth, that he didn't make any set in stone deals, but did kind of have some friendly conversations with him. But I do find that dichotomy a little interesting. I don't know. I know that he didn't offer Termat the VP slot, and I know that Chase did. And at the end of the day, it's politics.
I'm like, I wanted to ask him, well, who is it? And maybe you should have offered that person the VP slot and stuff. Right. Who knows what's going on? I think there was a consensus that a lot of people thought that Chase wouldn't be the best candidate for the party, and they would cover each other's asses. But all is fair in blood and war, right? It's politics, baby. So, it's kind of crazy to me the way the Libertarian Party, the Mises Caucus, it got a lot of those at-large nominees, right? They strengthen their power. The at-large people, what is their position again? I kind of compare it to a steering committee, but what exactly is it when we talked about the at-large nominees?
So the committee as a whole, they have the four typical officers like chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and then we have 8 regions that all get a representative. Then there's 4 people that are seated on the board that get voted on by the entire country. So they're kind of national representatives.
So it's 12 representatives plus the chair is 13,
something like that. Yeah.
And most of them are Mises Caucus members.
I think all but 4. I think it's 8 to 4 at the moment. Yeah.
Well, let's go to Dave, because this is so interesting. We had a picture together. First off, do you have our picture of me, Dave, and Dave? Well, you can find that in a second. All right. It's on Twitter. It's on my Twitter. I said my favorite Daves. Dave put it up. We, during the Trump speech, Dave Smith kind of came into the Lars room and where we were congregating, and Dave Fite said, all right, let's take a picture. Rarely do I have David Smith and Pastor Jardula in the same room together. We take this awesome picture. It says my favorite libertarians named Dave. But then there was a little back and forth between you guys. Get Dave Fite's tweet real quick.
So common.
It's like wow. I didn't know that was going on over there. Let's pull up the tweet. Dave Fite's, not Dave's, the one with Dave Fite's tweet. All right, let's stay here first. Let's stick here. The Libertarian Party Mises Caucus set out a mission to bring the Ron Paul revolution into the Libertarian Party, to shed the party of goofiness, wokeness, and corruption. It's been incredibly rewarding. It's been an incredibly rewarding journey, and I've met some amazing people who will be lifelong friends along the way. At the last convention in Reno, we swept every position with supermajorities. This weekend, if you can scroll on up for the audience, please, we retain control of the LNC while re-electing Angela McArdle, who is a phenomenal chair and put on the best convention in the party's history. Unfortunately, we lost a big one, and there's no getting around that. I can't ignore the elephant in the room here. And I think some other independent media journalists out there should listen to this and see this and watch this, because a lot of people are trying to insinuate that, oh my God, Chase is a CIA plant or whatnot. Like, no, they don't understand what's going on in the party. This is where Dave says, this is all my fault. When I was planning on running, there was tremendous enthusiasm and energy amongst our ranks. When I pulled out for family reasons, it pulled out the rug from under our guys, and we weren't able to recover. And I want to put this right here real quickly before we get into the next line, which says it's ridiculous to put any blame on the Mises chair for this. Okay, Dave is taking accountability because he pulled out the rug, but he also did it late. And it really just, it really, what's the word? I should say it shines a light on the fact that presidential elections are presidential elections. You have to campaign, you have to whip votes, you need time. The fact that Rechtenwald got such a late start really hurt his chances, in my opinion, where you have talked about Chase Oliver was a well-oiled machine, right? It was well-run. Mm-hmm. He had run in Georgia, so he had so much momentum. Yeah, there was a lot of people who wanted to vote against the Mises chair, right, or the Mises party, the Mises caucus itself. But the fact is, Rechtenwald got such a late start. I mean, I didn't even know who he was until I heard Dave make a speech for him. So can you lend a little credence to that? I mean, Dave is taking accountability here. Don't go too far because I want to read the rest of it. It's ridiculous to put any blame on the Mises chair for this. He is an incredible, decent, brilliant, and hardworking person who never compromised his principles and continued to fight for the Mises chair vision or the Mises caucus vision. Wreck the regime, who is Rechtenwald, was the best candidate willing to step up and work tirelessly while making enormous personal sacrifices for the cause. He came within a hair of winning, but fell short. The blame is on me, not those guys. I deserve to take my lumps, and I can handle that, but please don't take this out on good people who busted their asses for you. It's my fault, and I'm sorry I let you down. He goes on to congratulate Chase, yada, 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 but that's enough of that. Let's talk more about what Dave is saying right here. Why is Dave right? Is a lot of it his fault? And yeah. All right. Well, please just dive right into it. Go right into it.
Yeah. I mean, if the Mises Caucus plan and timeline had continued as they set it out 5-6 years ago, he would have gotten the nomination in probably a landslide. The only reason that might not be true is because if he had been running, it might have brought people like Justin Amash and Spike Cohen into the race as well, and it would have actually have been a real, like, solid, awesome primary against three guys who respect each other and get along and could just, build the movement. So it might have been a hard battle if it was that, but if it was Dave versus everybody else that actually ran, landslide victory, probably second ballot.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and here's the picture. My two favorite Daves, right? Pasta's two favorite Daves. There's Dave Smith, Dave Fite, right? You also made a tweet over here too as well. It says, damn well, if you win the nominee, Chase for Liberty would endorse you and vote for you. And that's the comment you left. That's a comment you left as we get to pull it up right here. I'm having a hard time finding Dave Smith's comment for what he said under yours. You have it next. Okay, so this is you telling, this is under the tweet we just wrote. You know damn well that if you were the nominee, Chase for Liberty would endorse you and vote for you. Mm-hmm. And then Dave responded, I love you, David, but this is a bananas claim. When my guys took over the LNC, Chase went out of his way to say that they didn't represent him. If I were the nominee, Chase and his supporters would make it their mission to ruin my life. The fact is that the delegates made a huge mistake. Look at the reaction already. Chase may not have advocated for lockdowns, mandates, but he totally bought into the propaganda. Can you stroll up a little bit on that so I can read that? Bragging about outdoor bragging about outdoor, making social distancing, and masking at dinners. He defended drag queen story hour, chemically castrating children, and supports open borders. I can't support that. It's a non-starter. It's going to be a very bad year for the LP candidates, and there's nothing any of us can do about that. David, your comments on that? I'm not going to even ask you a question. I'm going to let you just go right at it.
So I think some of Chase's supporters would have gone after Dave Smith. That is a fact. I'll say that first and foremost. There definitely would have been a similar backlash. It just would have been a lot smaller and from a lot less important and a lot less famous people with a lot smaller platforms. And it wouldn't have made as many waves. But the thing is, Chase specifically wouldn't have. And for the last 4 years, the Mises Caucus, is one of their main criticisms of their detractors, their adversaries, whatever, is that they are party loyal to a fault. Dave Smith interviewed the former chair, Nick Sarwark, probably about 5 years ago now, and where he asked him if he would vote for Dick Cheney if he was the Libertarian nominee. And Nick said yes, because for the health of the party, I would still try to get as many Libertarian votes as possible, even if it was Dick Cheney. Like that's the other wing of the party. So whether or not you respect that or think that's a weakness or think that's like terrible, wherever your opinions are on that they're private. Like I disagree with Nick on that for sure, but clearly Dave Smith is better than Dick Cheney. Those people still would have also voted for him, because the anti-Mises wing has always been the wing that cared more about the infrastructure and the health of the party, sometimes over principle to a fault. And they would have supported Dave had he been the nominee. There would have been a contingent that would have shat on him, of course. And that contingent was shitting on almost everyone. Some of them even Chase, because he's not strong enough anti-Mises or strong enough on some of these issues. So, I definitely think that Dave is wrong there. Chase would have voted for him. He might not have, stumped for him across the country or whatnot, but he would have voted for him. He would have endorsed him.
So support for open borders was added to the LP national platform in 2018. I helped pass the plank, and that's DC. My libertarian socialist, my LibSoc brother. I met some LibSocs out there. Mr. Fulner was one of them. Part of the Radical Caucus. It was a fun time. So that's great.
For the record, Chase doesn't support open borders. He's a return to Ellis Island immigration.
That's his stance, right?
Yeah. So it's not quite open border. It's not just, free for all bullshit anarchy.
Well, movement of travel, right? Right, free movement. The right to free movement. I think libertarians are all about it. Where's the other? Can we? Do you have the other super chat real quick? I want to put it up while we're here, real quick. Pasta, your hardest working man in indie media. I noticed peeps leave after segments during the break. Maybe let them know the show ain't over. I should say that. We'll be right back. I usually do say we'll be right back. Thank you so much, Natalie Williams. I did do 5 shows today. This is my 6th show. I was all over Sputnik Radio talking about what I experienced at this caucus, at this convention. I thought it was one of the better conventions out there. Very nuanced, a lot of conversations. Everybody's going to that DNC convention in August, I believe it is. They're just going to protest. We came here to build bridges, have olive branches. Yeah, there was a feisty battle going on between the different factions of the Libertarian Party. But for me, seeing that a grassroots movement can exist in a party and really take power is something special, and the conversations that go with it. I think a lot of the people are all united on being anti-interventionist. They're united on free speech, and they're united on the free press. I think that's so important. DC also says the Mises Caucus wants to repeal the 1964 Civil Rights Act. DC loves to shit on the Mises Caucus every chance he gets over there. So it's very, very interesting. Thank you, DC.
I mean, he's not wrong, but that's another one of those like libertarian to a fault opinions,
Yeah.
It's
what do we got
principled.
next, Slice? Let's get Clint Russell up here. Clint Russell, who ran. You stumbled upon a tweet. let's start with the tweet because Clint has been very, very vocal. I mean, Dave Smith just said at that last in a tweet that he can't support Chase, right? So he's saying that there's a lot of the redhead libertarians said no way. There's a lot of people who said Clinton Russell is one of those people who said nope, not going to happen. Let's take a look what Clinton Russell has to say in this tweet. I just want to make this very, very clear. Chase Oliver does not represent most libertarians, and very few of us will be supporting him come November. I, for one, will not be. Your thoughts on that tweet?
I mean, there was I for 2 and for 3. There was like a couple of people that created a little thread there, which was kind of amusing, and including Josie, redhead libertarian. Most of them were already going to vote for Trump. They already said that. Most of them were going to vote for Trump if it was Rechtenwald, even. Some of them, definitely if it was anyone other than Rechtenwald. Most of these people have been, placating for the Republican Party for quite some time, especially. And none of them, especially like not Clinton, not Josie, none of them have been actual like active members of the party for any amount of time or done any kind of work for the party. They do work for the movement, which is great. And I appreciate the work that they do for the movement, but that is very much different than being, an active member of the party.
Absolutely. But guess what? I think that's just as important, if not more important right now, reaching the populace, reaching the people out there. I understand that there's people who've done great work in the Libertarian Party. Look at
both things.
Larry
reach
Sharp
people.
has done so much work,
Yeah.
but you're talking about Clint and Dave. They have this ability to reach so many different people out there. I think it's so important. Let's play
for the
video.
record, I won't make that critique of Dave. Dave does an amazing amount of work for the party itself also. He has shown up for the last 6 years and busted his ass for the party and for the caucus. He's not part of that group. I will make that clear distinction. Clint kind of, came in a little bit later, is kind of taking a passive approach to it, and which is, again, fine. And I love his show. He does great work. But that him and Dave are in two very different.
I haven't been in the party in a long time, but if I come in and I can help the party because I have, more reach than a lot of other members out there, then I can be just as valuable to some of those people who do some of that great work. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just setting the table for the future right now, just in case I decide to join that party as a leftist libertarian. So let's look at Liberty Lockdown, my boy Clint Russell. I know you probably might have wanted Mike Termat to win that VP slot. I wanted Clint to win that VP slot so bad. I was going to be his leftist outreach coordinator, and now I lost a job on the vote. But let's take a look and see what he has to say. This was right before the nomination for VP process took place.
All right, I'm sitting here with Clint Russell. Clint, you're going to run for vice president, but we heard earlier that Mike Termat decided and Chase Oliver made an agreement that he would be his vice president. How does it work in the Libertarian Party?
So the delegates decide in both instances for the presidential candidate as well as the vice presidential candidate. So despite the fact that they made a deal, it doesn't change the fact that the delegates get to decide who the vice president will be. So yes, the delegates did choose Chase Oliver. He got over 50%. Edging out Noda, but the VP race is not settled yet, and I've decided that I'm going to proceed and let the delegates decide. So if I get over 50% of the vote, then Mike Termat is
no longer the vice president. Yeah.
Correct.
So that deal can be, and I don't mean to cause problems over here. I'm just being like a friendly independent journalist over here. But you are a Mises Caucus guy, and Rechtenwald was the Mises Caucus candidate. He seemed very upset with he said there was a lot of betrayal, that there was kind of like deals made behind his back. Is there a little bit kind of like, let's poke him a little bit now? All right, we're going to play hardball here within the Libertarian Party now?
No. At least that's not my position on it. I've been running for the vice presidency as a unaffiliated. I was not walking in lockstep with any of the candidates. I had never endorsed anybody. I had gone out of my way to not endorse anybody. So I've been running for vice president regardless of who wins the presidency. So this is not me choosing to do so to stick it to anybody. If Mr. Rechtenwald feels as if there was betrayal or backroom dealing, I mean, clearly there was a deal made, but it wasn't backroom. It was made right on this floor. I watched it happen. I don't know that that's like dirty pool. or if that's standard practice. I'd have no idea if he's right that there was actually backstabbing going on.
How many candidates are running for vice president right now? Do you know?
Well, as of Friday, it was just me and Larry Sharp, but Larry was running affiliated with Lars Mapstead, who was voted out like in the second or third round of voting. So it was basically me unopposed. And now, because of this horse trading deal, Mike Termott is the preferred VP to Chase Oliver. I guess their assumption is that either I would drop or they think that they can beat me on the ballot.
Has anybody approached you from the Chase Oliver or Mike Termott campaign?
Not a one.
And you've just been sitting here and nobody's been coming by?
Nope.
All right. Well, hey, man, good luck. You're going to do this process right now?
Soon. We'll see.
Can more nominations get entered into the race right now, or is it?
I don't believe so. I think only people that were running for president can drop down to
Yeah.
run for vice president. I don't think anybody else can enter. So it's going to be me versus Termott.
That's interesting. Well, good luck, Mr. Russell, and we'll see what happens. We're here at the Libertarian National Convention. The vice
Okay.
presidency is about to take place.
Okay. First off, what's that? Yeah. Okay. So let me say something. I love Clint Russell. He's a friend of mine, but I don't know if I believed him when he says, I ain't trying to stick it to anybody right there. Like I love you, Clint, but I don't know if I believe that right there because, there seemed to be a lot of aggravation from a lot of Mises people, right? And don't you think, though, all right, despite what we believe, don't you think it would have been better for the Libertarian Party to then nominate and elect him as the vice president candidate right now? So there would have been some form of bonding. We have a Mises candidate and a non-Mises at the top of the ticket. I mean, these guys have already bailed. David and Clint are gone. Their outreach is huge. I mean, they can reach so many people right now. This is going to hurt the Libertarian Party. If Chase Oliver was smart, about what he was doing, wouldn't he want to make sure that one of these guys were part of that ticket, so therefore they have bigger outreach? Because now you can't bag on Chase so much, because if you're bagging on Chase, you're bagging on Clint. I think this was not a wise move by the delegates and the members there. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, first of all, I think I'll just disagree with that last little bit, that because we saw it in 2020 with Spike and Joe Jorgensen. They didn't get along, and it was a shit show of a campaign. It was hard to run. There was miscommunications. Interviews got dropped. Big interviews got dropped through the floor. Big debates that could have happened, moderated by some really cool people, that just, got shot down out of spite because, Joe didn't want Spike to do it. Because Spike was the more dynamic speaker. I don't think Chase would have been as petty as Joe Jorgensen was, and I don't think Clint would have necessarily been either. But I think their teams would have been as petty as Joe's team would have been, and the animosity that you saw on the floor all weekend would have continued through the campaign, and it would have made it almost impossible to actually run a campaign at all.
But wait a second, Dave. Spike was not a huge influencer. Dave Smith, Liberty Lockdown, Redheaded Socialist, these people have a huge populist outreach. I mean, I understand that if you don't learn the past, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. I get that. But this seems to me to be a real big mess up, because a lot of people said, this is a way we can have some unity coming out of this convention. Let Clint get Clint on the ticket right now, and you're going to satisfy a lot of those in the Mises caucus, and then you're going to also then disarm a lot of people who are going to be attempting to attack Chase. Now it seems like Chase and Mike Termott have completely ostracized themselves.
Yeah, I guess my point is, I thought that in 2020, I'm not trying to say that Spike is as big as Clint or was. I mean, now I'd say they're about. But it just didn't work out that way. I was really excited when it was Jorgensen, Cohen, that between the two of them, they had the nomination or the endorsement of every single caucus in the party. Between the two of them, I was like, this is going to be a great unity ticket. We're going to do the thing. I don't think that it would have actually disarmed that many attacks. It might have it might have kept some of the people at bay. Dave wouldn't have gone as hard, and maybe some of the other more lockstep Mises people. But the people that are out there calling Chase a groomer commie will have been doing that for 5 years and will continue to do that.
Listen, I know Spike was a big influencer,
Also,
but nothing like
well,
David.
I just
Go ahead.
sorry, I just want to say, like, also, it wasn't really up to Chase. It was up to the delegates. Making the deal with Termont was the only way Chase got the nomination. That was I think the correct choice there.
Well, he thought about himself over party, if you're asking me there. But
also, Termont was a member of the Mises Caucus this entire time. He got shit from the other side a lot for his pretty hardline stances on COVID and some other things, or some people thought that maybe he went a little too far. He has definitely had a more patriotic, conservative, grounded messaging style that some of the old, original Mises Caucus people were kind of looking for in a candidate. I still think that together they make up a good chunk of the party, and I think, and I'll also just say this: if Clint had gotten it, I was very much looking forward to trying to be the person that got Clint and Chase in a room together with a blunt, just the three of us, and was like, guys, listen, you guys are like 95% the same people. You guys are both kind of rowdy, dorky, a little bit nerdy, kind of cool people. You're both good messengers. You agree on
I think
so
that would have
much.
been great. I think that would have been great.
Yeah, I think I know Chase was definitely 100% willing to work with Clint, like he said, in
my interview,
like he was definitely willing to sit down. I don't know if it would have gone the other way around, especially, you see how quickly those people flipped on Chase. I don't think having Clint on the ticket would have kept them at bay by much.
Oh, I think it would have been a totally different story. I really do believe that. And I think that you would have saw a lot of the Mises people kind of saying, all right, we don't like Chase's positions. He's got the ticket, but at least we got something here with Clint. Let's get the messaging right and let's move on. But right now they feel slighted, and they feel like a lot of people just was like they just voted against the Mises Caucus. They didn't vote for Chase or Mike Termat. I think a lot of the Mises Caucus people feel that way, and that's why they're having a hard time right now based upon principles. Go ahead.
I think it definitely there was a chunk of that, but at the end of the day, they were voting against the candidates, not the caucus. Like, Rechtenwald was a weak candidate, and Chase Clint also, has some issues, and has some bad takes that the delegation is going to disagree with. I think that there were definitely people that were voting against the caucus, but the actual difference makers were people who saw Rechtenwald not do so great on the press conference after Trump, or have seen some of Clint's antics on Twitter or the Tower Gang podcast. There's some dirt there that just a lot of people didn't want associated with the party.
Yeah. And I just want to point this out too really quickly. The Libertarians missed a big opportunity by not choosing RFK. Latte Larry, you're wrong. That's the whole thing when it comes to the Libertarians. I spoke to many delegates as they came out of the speech of RFK. There is red lines for independent, anti-imperialist leftists like myself, and there's red lines for Libertarians. And the majority of those Libertarians who said they would never vote for RFK is because of Israel, Gaza, and because you can't be a pro-peace candidate if you're going to be pro-Israeli. You can't, because it just spins out into now you got to be at war with Iran, then you got to be at war with China and Russia and whatnot, and it's just a red line. So you're wrong. He ruined it himself, RFK, by taking such an ultra-Zionist stance on Israel, Palestine. I want to highlight a couple more people while we're here before we get you out of here. I know I've been holding you for quite some time, and it was such a long weekend. And
actually, if I can, real quick on that topic, because yes. Were you there when Chase made his acceptance speech
Yeah, I was there.
Okay,
I was there.
because that little back and forth there at the end was one of my favorite moments in the whole convention, where he ended his acceptance speech talking about a ceasefire, and somebody in the audience said, release the hostages.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, definitely, release the hostages, but if you want the hostages back, maybe don't drop bombs on them.
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
wish
he
he
is
would have
the
said.
only presidential candidate that is going to be on 49, possibly 50 states ballots that has an actual hard stance on this issue, and it's the correct stance.
No, I mean, the one state he might not be on is New York, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like nuts
Fucking
because what
sucks.
New York has done to cheat and stuff. But I wish he would have said, yeah, well, let's release all the hostage. And Israel has many more hostages, Palestinian young children in jail than Hamas does of Israel. Let's play a little bit of Spike Cohen really quickly, and then we'll get to Larry Sharp, because I really want to highlight these guys, because these are some of my favorite people within the party.
What's up? I'm here at the Libertarian National Convention. One of my guys, Spike Cohen. How you doing, Spike?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How are you doing?
All right, so I'm doing great. Thank you so much for my first Libertarian Convention. It's pretty wild. So
What a great first convention for you, huh?
all right. Break me in slowly and smoothly here. All right, so we had this crazy situation where the last round came to none of the above versus Chase Oliver. Now, I mean, just like any political games behind the scene, Democratic, Republican, I've been a part of those things.
Right.
There's always stuff that goes on. There's always going to be a little sour grapes and whatnot. But what's your initial thoughts of Chase Oliver getting the nomination right out of the gate?
Well, first of all, he didn't get it right out of the gate. This is, I believe, the tightest election we've ever had. I do think there are ones that have taken more ballots, but I think it was because there were more candidates in play in those races. I may be wrong, but as long as I've been following it, this is the closest race we've ever had. So, I will say Chase is actually a friend of mine. I've known him for many years. My hope is that, knowing that almost half of this body wanted no one instead of him, he needs to be working real hard to extend olive branches and make it clear he wants to be a Libertarian candidate for the entire party.
Okay, so now there was a deal that was made and announced. Mike Termat agreed to be Chase Oliver's vice president, but this is the Libertarian Party, baby. You got to go through the same mechanism you went through for the president. Yep. And I just spoke to Clint Russell, and he's not bowing down over here.
He's still running? Okay.
He's still running. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it can get a little bit messy over here late night at the Libertarian Convention right now?
Are you asking me if what just happened could get messier? Yes, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I don't know, man. If you had asked me who do I think is going to win it, I would have said I don't know. If you now are asking me who do I think is going to win VP, I have no clue. I don't know. No one knows. No one knows. This is going to be wild.
Regardless of what happens, what do you think the Libertarian Party nominees, the president and the vice president, can do moving forward to get and keep that ballot access out there? They're not well-known guys. A lot of people did not know who Chase Oliver was. I mean, there was a lot of Trumpers that were here yesterday and didn't know who Ross Ulbricht is. So, I mean, this is one of those situations. Yeah, they do now, and that's great. And that's why I really applaud Angela and her staff for getting Trump over here. I think it was a genius idea. I know some people were against it here today, but what are your thoughts on what they can do, the Libertarian ticket, when they come out of this to be relevant, to get on the ballot? I didn't know you as the vice president. I heard you speak in front of the Capitol, and I was like, holy cow, I'm going to vote Libertarian over here. What could they do to emulate that same Spike Cohen magic that you had when you were running?
They're going to have to do what I did. I traveled to nearly 40 states, and this was as the VP candidate during COVID, which made it much, much, much harder. They're going to have to travel to as close to 50 states as possible. They're going to have to hit every single location they can. They're going to have to pull in every favor they can to get on as much media as they can. The Libertarian Party needs to be as big and disruptive and as loud with our message as possible. We are the only party that understands that the problem here is there is way too much power in the hands of way too few.
All right. Sorry, once again, we lost the very end of it, but whatever, Jamie Cheese Lights over there. All right. Your thoughts on that? He talked about what he can do to make a splash. Do you think it's people have said Chase is no Spike Cohen, right? It's kind of hard to emulate Spike Cohen.
Spike Cohen wasn't Spike Cohen.
Yeah.
When he got nominated. Like I met Spike Cohen around like within the same week that I met you in New Hampshire in 2019, or I guess it was 2020 by then, running for VP alongside Vermin Supreme. And I didn't even realize he was him. Like, I met him, talked to him for 15 minutes, moved on with my life, and didn't realize until like a year and a half later when I saw a picture of him from that night that was the dude I talked to. He didn't present himself as a candidate in any way, shape, or form. He had a Carhartt jacket on and a beanie. And like, that's the Spike Cohen that went into convention. I think Chase is currently a better candidate than Spike was when he got the nomination. Spike is currently significantly better than Chase, but give Chase another 4 years, and I think he'll get there too. So
me and Spike after that interview had a little bit of a let's hug it out, bro session, because we had a little bit of bumping heads. We knocked heads about an issue, but we hugged it out. Aram says, why is nobody focusing or talking about how Chase Oliver lobbied for Termat after that obvious backroom deal, after someone tried to change the rules to not allow delegate voting for VP? Do you want to address that? Because I know we're going to digress if we talk about that a little bit, but if you want to make a comment about that, I'd love to hear it.
I'm honestly not sure what motion they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, they did make the announcement that Termat was going to be Chase's, VP, and then they said that somebody tried to change the rules. Remember, they tried to suspend the rules; it didn't work. But yada yada yada.
Oh, I mean, so they Termat utilized parliamentary procedure to just do basically a point of personal privilege, which Angela could have ruled out of order in the moment, technically as electioneering or something like that. But they used parliamentary procedure to kind of sneak in and make that announcement. Yeah, because so traditionally every candidate traditionally every candidate has a chance to speak after they get eliminated. It's not in the rules, but it's a motion that gets made every convention, and it's just kind of precedent that we just do that. That got voted down early on. Within the first round. It was kind of a confusing thing. We were already a little bit running late. Everybody was tired. There were a bunch of candidates on the ballot that nobody wanted to hear from. And so that got voted down because it needed a 2/3 majority to do it. So
I thought when they said release the hostages, they meant us delegates. Literally, they were supposed to go to a gala. Like we saw Erica and Martha Bueno all dressed off to the side, ready to go to the ball, and nobody was going. They had a suite with all dishes of food. They made an announcement. Hey, man, we just plated 200 plates of food. You ain't getting this redone. Just deal with it. And everybody was like, all right, somebody order pizza and stuff. And Aram does point out that rules were changed to allow only 1-minute speeches. Then Oliver spoke for like 3 minutes just before the vote. That is kind of interesting. And it is, something we want to point out.
I don't know why Chase got 2 speeches between the nomination and the end of things. There were 2 speeches there. One of them was normal. One of them, I don't know what that was, to be honest with you. But Angela announced him up there both times. Like that him on stage wasn't fuckery. That, or at least, I would assume not, unless in the part of the backroom deal was that Angela also wanted Termat.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not saying that
I would bet against that.
But she was the one that brought Chase up on stage both times, so I don't think that was again,
she's
Termat
overcompensating to make sure she's not leaning in any Mises favor.
I do want to
she's
say
a Mises party, chair.
I do want to say, you said earlier on, and then we went way off. Angela did an amazing job chairing the convention.
Oh yeah,
there were probably 5 or 6 rulings that she made that I disagreed with. All but one of them got overturned by the body anyway. But she kept her composure. She walked that line of kind of speaking her mind, but not really overstepping and making it putting her vote in as the chair. You know, she kind of went right up to that line, especially on that NOTA vote. She made it very crystal fucking clear that if you vote NOTA, you're killing the party. Without really stepping over the line as the chair, but she made that very clear.
She said, we'll close the convention without a libertarian which is not the case, because then somebody can change or make a vote to amend the rules and then try to get somebody.
They could have, yeah.
Could. From what I understood, that there was not going to be, and it's kind of crazy too, because Nick Sarwark, we have him, the ex-chair, and he was getting mad, saying that Angela was possibly running out the clock for not any of the at-large votes. And shortly after he said that, we put that on the air, Angela called for nominations for the at-large, and it was like, oh, okay, well, there goes that, and that was pretty interesting. And then we heard accusations that, and we saw somebody from the Texas Libertarian Party that said, run the clock out, right? So therefore, a lot of delegates left. A lot of people feel that if it wasn't so late, because a bunch of delegates left to go catch their flights or go to bed because they would just zonk the hell out, some older people, that Clint would have won that vote because a lot of those people left. But, that's Monday morning quarterbacking. We can't do anything about it now. Here's Nick Sarwark with that comment. He was very, very active. He's an ex-chair, so he was fired up about a lot of things. But he said this, and shortly after, Angela called to have people, to make nominees for the at-large.
Hey, I'm hanging here with Nick. Hi. How do you say your last name? Sarwark. All right, so even DC was in the chat saying hi, and there was a couple people saying, has Nick made an appearance? Here is Nick.
I'm totally here.
Nick, what the hell is going on? I heard that Mike Termack just got eliminated. But then they made some announcement, if I can hear it correctly, I was upstairs in the press room, that Mike has agreed to be Chase's VP.
That's correct, and the chair right now is trying to run out the clock so that we do not do nominations for at-large, because if we do not nominate for at-large and we do not vote for at-large, the Mises Caucus and their regional representatives that they have the majority of will choose the at-large members. She has been cheating for the last half hour, running the clock. We have traditionally done nominating speeches during balloting. Every national convention I chaired, 2016, 2018, 2020, we have done it. But here we are not doing it. And we're not doing it because they're losing, and they're afraid of losing because they're fucking losers.
And you were the ex-chair of this party, so you've chaired this party for how many years did you chair this party for?
6 years.
Okay, so what you're seeing right now is you're saying that Angela's trying to run out the clock so that they can pick the delegates themselves.
They can pick the members of the national committee themselves.
Okay,
after this convention, and deny that vote to these delegates, deny all of these people who spent thousands of dollars to come to DC to make the business of the party work. She will not let them vote because she is a cheating cheater.
So what should she do?
She should open nominations for at-large representatives right now, and they can be nominated and a list can be created. So the last thing we do today is distribute ballots for at-large and vote on them. We have done it before during this time while they're counting ballots. We have done it every time before while they're counting ballots. We're not doing it now because she knows she's going to lose.
How many members are there you're talking about that have to be selected?
There are 5 members of the at-large members of the Libertarian National Committee.
Okay. And how many people have put themselves up to be nominated?
I have no idea because we haven't heard the nominations yet.
Wow.
We have to get to nominations. She is going to keep cheating as long as she can. She is trying to run the clock. The delegates here have to make sure they stay in the room. We don't adjourn until we vote for at-large.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. And what's with the president thing, with the VP thing again?
Mike
just one more time.
Termack said that he would be Chase Oliver's vice presidential nominee. That is a thing that is probably going to help Chase Oliver.
Yes, because then Mike will throw his support behind Chase.
Correct.
People.
But you have to get a point of order and get nominations during balloting. Points of order have to happen. She can't stand at ease. She needs to take the points of order.
Thank you, Nick.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Some people say that there was pressure applied and then Angela opened up the nominations, but it was shortly after that people started getting nominated for at-large members of the National Committee. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts on that is that there were plenty of losers in that room. Nick Sarwark being one of them. We kicked him out in 2020 for a reason, and he acts like that and trashes people and makes accusations that are completely bullshit. I genuinely, like, I'm not Angela's biggest fan. I used to be good friends with Nick. But Angela did a fantastic job trying to get that convention pushed through and worked out. And the Mises Caucus slate won in a landslide unanimously. They won all 5 seats. They endorsed 5 people. They won all 5 seats. So clearly they weren't going to lose either. Like, most of what he said there turned out to not be true. But he just likes stirring the pot.
Yeah. I'm doing like the pastor in the South when he's up there bullshitting, telling all lies. He takes the thing out of his pocket and starts patting down the sweat because it's getting hot over here from the bullshit. I don't know. Listen, I had to put it out there. I'm going to let people decide for themselves. That's your opinion, David. Got that. Let's finish up this show today with Larry Sharpe, who happens to be one of my favorite libertarians. This guy is a mensch. He's a stand-up guy. He's a New York libertarian. He had a moment where he was asking the crowd, how many of you has received a phone call from me and had some type of help? And so many people raised their hands. I think sometimes this guy takes a lot on the chin, and it doesn't seem like he gets a lot of backing from some of the members there that he should get, because he's just a stand-up guy. We're going to close out the show with Larry Sharpe and then get your final opinions on the whole convention as a whole.
All right, I'm here with Larry Sharpe at the Libertarian National Convention. He's on the floor over here. A lot of stuff's going on, Larry. A lot of people coming up. They're asking for your advice. They're talking. You were part of the vice presidential debate. So many great things about this weekend. It's been a fun time, an educational time. Now, can you educate my audience on this whole process of picking a candidate for president?
Yes,
because I have said really quickly, I want you to piggyback on this, because I want you to make sure. I said to Angela the other day, you are now the third party. You guys have established that. The Libertarians are here. So many ex-Democrats, so many ex-Republicans. Is this a missed opportunity, the fact that you're not going to have a strong, well-known presidential candidate coming out of this convention? Go ahead, Larry.
Yes and no, right? Of course, popularity matters. Of course it does. All right, it's a popularity contest. But the most important piece, we make sure we have someone who actually is libertarian, so that when we get out there and people see us, they don't see us as somebody who is not us. If we are not distinct, people will go back to Democrats, Republicans. You've got to be distinct. You see why third parties fail all the time. We are ideologues, no question. Most third parties, Greens are ideologues, right? Most of the third parties who are around are ideologues. We care about our ideology. It's important. If we only cared about winning, we'd be Republicans, Democrats. Yeah. If we only cared about power, we'd be Republicans, Democrats. We care about moving the country towards our views because we know we are right. So yes, we want a combination. We want a unicorn. We want a popular guy who speaks well, who is, principled. We want all the things. What do? We find the closest to that we possibly can get, and we try to grow from there. That's why we go through this. That's why we have all this back and forth. That's why we have this process to try to find that unicorn.
All right. What about the ballot access? Because you've been mentioning that we could lose the Libertarians could lose ballot access. Can 100%. You give us a little insight to how that could look in this whole? Because right now, Cornel West and Jill Stein are polling higher than any Libertarian candidate that's coming out of this.
Depends on the poll. No. Yeah. Sometimes, depending on the poll in the state, sometimes Lars Mapstead, who's been in about 15 polls so far, sometimes he will poll above them or in between them.
Yes.
Depends on the poll. Generally speaking, Cornel West is polling lower than Jill Stein. Not every poll, but depending on the poll, he tends to be 1 or 2 points below her. And Lars Mapstead is either in between, sometimes about both, and sometimes underneath. It all depends on the poll.
So Lars is who you're kind of looking at to keep that ballot access.
Lars is the guy who can do it. Lars Mapstead is the guy who can do it. And the reason is, to your question, many states, I think, is it 20 to 25? It's in that area, require a statewide race for a candidate to get at least 1% or sometimes 2%, depending upon the state. New York State has 2% or 130,000 votes, whichever is higher. If they achieve that, then they retain access to the ballot. If they don't, it's gone. If our president candidate, which is a statewide race, if that candidate does not get 1%, a lot of those states will lose ballot access.
So you think, is there anybody else on that stage? I know a lot of people talk about Adam Smith,
Nope.
Matt Turr, right? I mean,
you mean Mike Tremont? or Josh Smith.
Mike Termott, Josh Smith. I'm so sorry. Yes.
No. I know
Yeah.
my people.
Yeah.
So I'm being good. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You don't think they have a shot to maintain that 2% across the board and keep that ballot access?
I think they're going to struggle because we have, as you just mentioned, we got RFK Jr. in the race. We got Jill Stein in the race, who's funded now. In 2016, she wasn't very much funded. She's funded now. And we also have Cornel West in the race. You have 3 independents. Generally speaking, when libertarians are the only other choice in the map, we get all the, go to hell votes, right?
Yes.
We get all of those. But when you have other options, we're not going to get all of those. So we have to fight harder. So it's going to be very challenging. The advantage that Lawrence has is he has a good plan. He's got cash. He's got a good team. And he's retired. He's independently wealthy. He's retired. He's a full-time candidate that can just go out here and knock it all down. And literally his family's here. Yeah. So like his wife and kids are behind him. So I think that's a good chance.
What about the whole idea of nominating RFK for the Libertarian
ticket? Did you hear the booze?
I did hear it, but wouldn't he help? Would he help obtain or keep that ballot access?
There's no, look, let's be very forward. Bobby Kennedy is very popular. So would he help us achieve it? Yes. But my point is then, would the world look at our party as Bobby Kennedy's party or the Libertarian Party? That's the problem that we have to worry about, right?
Yeah.
If he's truly a libertarian, which I think you see most of the crowd disagrees with that, then they would happily have taken him.
Yeah.
Happily. The crowd does not believe it to be true. But to be fair, a lot of libertarians do like Bobby Kennedy. A lot of people like Bobby Kennedy. He's a very popular president candidate. People like him. He will do well no matter what. He could win.
Yeah.
Right. He has a real chance of what Lars talks about, which is breaking 270.
Yes.
That happens. Kennedy could be the compromise candidate and actually could become president. It's possible.
But his stance on Israel, Palestine, maybe for some of the libertarians, his stance on
Jill
guns.
Stein is getting so much money.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, it's the reason why Jill Stein's getting so much money. Yeah. 100% true.
Larry, I love talking to you. Not only are you a good libertarian, you're a mensch, and I can't wait to have another conversation on your show, my show. Have a great time at the convention.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
I still want to have a show that's called Shooting the Shit with Larry Sharp. He's just a gentleman and a scholar. I love the dude. He really is awesome. But what are your thoughts when he said that it's going to be almost impossible for anybody? You supported Lars. What do you think about Chase Oliver? Do you think he's going to be able to retain the ballot access that's necessary for the libertarians to keep moving forward? Or if you do lose it, let's say, and by the way, Kennedy is upside down for a reason. Right? You see he's upside down? Yeah, okay. Just make people understand I'm not supporting him. That's why I left him upside down. Yeah. Chicken shit won't do an interview with me because I asked him a hard question on Israel Palestine. You heard that. Stephanie Spear, I'm done trying to deal with you as a communications director. You give interviews to Tim Pool because Tim Pool won't beat him up on the Israel Palestine issue. So really, I'm done with the whole chicken shit way of approaching things. But that's beside the case. I mean, what are your thoughts on Chase Oliver maintaining the ballot access? You heard it from the horse's mouth there, Larry Sharp. He said it's going to be really hard to do so. Final thoughts.
I mean, I definitely, like you said, I also supported Lars. I also, part of that was campaigning because, that was before the ballot went through. And, he was Lars's running mate and kind of had to not lie, but maybe embellish a little bit on that. But I think, Lars, we would have done really well ballot access wise. He had the resources, he had the plan, we had a really firm mission to get ballot access in most states and maintain it, to stop 270 and to force a contingent election and get the most media coverage the Libertarian Party's ever seen. Chase doesn't have those resources, and he doesn't necessarily have the experience that Lars comes with, but he is going to absorb most of the team and most of the plan, and I hope most of the resources that were going to come at least from elsewhere. My biggest concern is, kind of what we've been talking about through most of this show. Lars was also getting a lot of attacks from the Mises Caucus side of the party, but not quite as much. They were just as BS and made up and mostly completely non-factual, but it was less of them. I don't think Dave would have renounced the party or whatever the fuck he just did. Nor would some of the other bigger names. They wouldn't have rocked the boat. So having Dave in the corner, regardless of who the candidate is. And so I'll actually say I walked up to Dave at the convention. Like, Dave and I are good friends. Like, I asked him to his face, I said, no, I hope no matter who wins this weekend, you stick around and you support them. And he said, I will. Like,
I don't know.
That's all I want
right
from
now. I gotta
people.
say this.
Like,
So far, Chase does not have my vote. I'm not voting for anybody yet. So let him come get it. I think that there's a lot of.
I'll be happy to hook you up with a much better comms director than whoever you just.
I know, right? I'll get an interview with Chase Oliver, but RFK was a big no for me, unfortunately. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. David Fite, libertarian, cool ass guy, best joint rolling libertarian out there. Also a good friend. I love you, brother. This has been an amazing journey. You know, it started out in 2020 when we met at the Tulsi Gabbard campaign in New Hampshire, and here we are today. And I hope I did you proud. I hope me and Jamie Cheese Slice did you proud with Don DeBar showing up at that convention as non-libertarians, right? Like we, you know, we're, you know, and C-SPAN left, but Pasta to Go was there to the very end. Thank you, David Fite. We love you, brother, and stay in touch, and we'll see each other along the way.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.